Hello, everyone. Welcome to our one-to-one marketing, 8 steps to effective personalization today here. We are so excited to have you all joining here as we explore marketing's future through the lens of personalization and technology. I am Ashley Topping here at Exclaimer, and I am super excited to be sitting alongside both my past and present of future of marketing here, Gina Hortatos, the CMO of HackerOne, and Carol Howley, the CMO of Exclaimer. In today's digital ecosystem where every interaction counts, we're finding that the importance of that personalized engagement cannot be overstated. And so it's really crucial that we're driving our conversations and guiding prospects through our funnel efficiently and effectively. And so intention truly is key. By inviting both Carol and Gina here today, they both bring alongside each other a wealth of knowledge and insights from a series of vast experience in the tech industry, emphasizing the critical role of personalization in both cybersecurity and email signature management. But before we dive in here today, I'd like to invite both Gina and Carol to introduce themselves and share a little bit about their perspectives on the evolving landscape of marketing and their pivotal role in personalization throughout their careers. So Gina, why don't you get us started here today and tell us a little bit about yourself and your experience in the journey of one-to-one.
Sure. Yeah. Hi, everyone. My name is Gina Hortatos. Currently, I'm the head of marketing and community at a company called HackerOne, which is a cybersecurity company where companies who want to tap into ethical hackers to try to find the vulnerabilities in the system before the bad actors do, tap into our community of 2 million strong security researchers in order to do that. Long time in B2B tech. I won't even say SaaS because I was doing B2B tech marketing before SaaS existed, really. And with 25 plus years of experience in B2B tech marketing, personalization has certainly been part of that journey. Starting back in the day when we were buying lists and just blasting spam and trying to get people's first names right, all the way through to what we have today. So I'm really excited about this topic today. Looking forward to digging in.
Amazing, amazing. And Carol, tell us a little bit about yourself.
Of course, yeah. My name's Carol Howley. I'm the CMO at Exclaimer. We're an email signature solution platform. So we're not anything to do with kind of blasting mass emails, but very much kind of that personal email that you have, you through your Outlook cadence when you send an email from yourself to another person, another contact. It's that personal email. We've got around 60,000 customers now and growing really fast. But one thing that we've really seen as such a fascinating trend is how our marketing's evolving and how we're starting to really look towards personalization in the same way that, Gina was mentioning, like how interesting it is at the minute to sort of see those changes and how you can approach things. So for me, I'm really, really thrilled to be here. I'm really thrilled to be talking about one of my favorite topics, which is very much along the lines of personalization. I guess in my career, I've been fortunate to lead marketing teams in the tech sector. I've been around a little while as well. I won't go into how long, but definitely edging the very early stages of SaaS, if not before. So I've worked in Skyscanner and Canonical are the two biggest companies that I worked in most recently, very much on the IT and sort of hacker side of things, and a lot more than now where we're really selling to marketers. So it's a very fascinating journey.
Amazing. Amazing. And thank you both for joining us today. We're so excited to be diving into personalization. I know it's something that a lot of us are really trying to crack the code on, especially with all of the noise out there. And, we all sit either behind a device or with a device in our hands for the majority of our day. And so there's a lot of communication coming at us on the daily. And so it's breaking through that noise and how do we do that as I know that considering the pace of technology advancements and our customers' expectations rather is truly evolving, and the call for a strategic playbook focusing on moving back to the basics is really just getting louder and louder on the daily. So Carol and Gina, talk to me about what that looks like at your companies, and what that approach is like for you guys when it comes to developing your marketing strategy, what that looks like from a funnel approach and things, and how does that tie into your long-term strategic planning. When we think about things like AI, for example, it's really easy to think that we have the easy button, right? Of just hitting go and things. And so, Gina, I know, for example, when we were catching up here last week, you have some examples and things of personalization gone wrong, for example. So
Yeah.
why don't you kick us off?
Sure. I think the first part of the question was really about, what does that playbook look like? So I'll start there, and then I can talk to the personalization gone wrong. I think that the more things change, the more they stay the same. And I think that the playbook, regardless of what technology you utilize, how you structure your teams, how you go about putting pen to paper on what personalization you seek, just like most other things in life, to get what you want, you have to know what you want. And in this context, it's about really understanding the buyer that you seek. And as basic as that sounds, it's surprisingly difficult, especially for startups, right? For many good reasons. If you're a startup that's still struggling with product market fit, for example, you might not know exactly, how your value proposition, how your unique differentiation is going to land with different audiences. So you're just kind of trying a bunch of things. You're also under pressure to make payroll or talk to your investors. So every deal, every dollar, we're not turning any customer down is kind of an ethos in those early years. But marketing really needs to take the lead in insisting that there be intentional study and work to really understand who your buyer is, what they care about, how your unique value could add value to their lives, and then how do you actually reverse engineer and how to get there by understanding what their purchase journey is, what their buying jobs are along the way, and so that's what I mean by back to basics. You can use AI to help streamline some of the steps involved in doing customer journey research and so forth, but there's no substitute for intentional interviewing with your target market and writing down the things that they say about value proposition and making sure that you're translating that into your positioning properly, making sure that you understand what their buying jobs are so that you can show up where they are in their journey with useful content that they feel is relevant and personalized to them. That is a grind. It's hard work. And it's work that requires prioritization, intentional focus. And it's also the kind of work that it's almost like exercise. It's like the most important thing for health and longevity, but it's the first thing to fall off the plate when things get busy. But you have to maintain that discipline, because without that deep understanding, updated regularly on how that buyer buys and what they think about and what makes them want to engage with you in particular, you're next thing you know, you're just in a sea of sameness with everybody else. So that's what I would say about the basics. We can get to the personalization gone wrong later, but I'd love to hear Carol's perspective on this.
Yeah, absolutely, of course. And I completely agree with you. Like every point that you've made, completely agree. I think growing a company and doing marketing is a really challenging game. And I think, Ashley, we mentioned it a lot about how we just need to work smarter, not harder, but it really is that investment in the basics that I think is the key element. It's sort of sitting back and looking at what those fundamentals are. Like it's really, a lot of companies are really quick to kind of jump in and write a subject line or run a new campaign or have, a new idea without actually sitting back and thinking, what's the messaging and when would that come in and when's it relevant to people and how do you set up that kind of whole process for everyone? So I think it's kind of sitting back and really kind of going through your go-to-market problems, as you say, approaching the customer journey, understanding who those core personas are, making sure that everything's right, in the right order, we're talking to people properly, and also you've joined up that journey, because I think one big thing that we always say is that the customer doesn't care whether it's marketing and then we throw them over the fence at sales, and then you throw them back at customer success, and then your marketing comes back out. It's kind of that whole journey is so important, and people are so quick to see through things that don't work for them.
I totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. And I think that oftentimes we talk about that very first touch point, and how important that touch point is, and things too, right? Because first impressions are everything, right? And so it's just like dating and things. And so it's all very relevant, and that experience that we provide makes an everlasting impact on the buyer. And so I think that we have to think about that experience from the very first touch point, whether it's an ad, a face-to-face interaction, so on and so forth. And so that strategy is really, really important. Carol, talk to me a little bit about where technology fits into this, and things, and how you see the advancements in technology enabling a better personalization experience for marketing.
Yeah, absolutely. It's kind of almost like a loaded question these days, I think.
Right.
I think there's really, I guess, we're kind of coming out of what's probably been a bit of a downturn for a lot of companies. There's been a lot of elements with budgets being cut. There's been a lot of kind of stress for people. I know for us, like we were saying, the whole work smarter, not harder. But by the way, you've got less budget, there's less people, you've got enhanced privacy regulations, you're not going to have cookies, you've got AI disrupting everything and people being concerned. So there's this huge kind of almost like volatility in the marketplace that is a fascinating time, and you can't really in this situation, I think, cut corners to kind of generate demand. You've got to really start investing really effectively in the basics, so making sure, as we said before, with your messaging, but also starting to value, I think, more that proper communication. And there is this fantastic opportunity with AI, I think, to scale really fast, and companies that are investing in really good content, using it really well, connecting, automating and scaling can have this huge advantage, I suppose. But it sort of almost comes at the risk of kind of that personal touch being lost, I think. And what we're trying to do, and what we're trying to do with our team, is to invest in that element of AI and start to kind of really amplify everything we do at speed and really at scale. But then sitting back and kind of adding that personal touch. You can write blogs so quickly, but then sitting back and being like, does that really kind of talk to what I think, and what's my opinion, and how do I bring that to life? And is there any real life examples or genuine learning I can add to this? So it's actually making sure that while you do take advantage of this incredible opportunity we've got, you can actually then kind of make it more authentic, and I guess kind of fight that mass generalization that you get with AI. And while you're still working at scale, you can still use it really effectively. So I think that's probably one of the biggest things that we're seeing, and how that then kind of ties into your brand strategy and your communication strategy, and that ability, while you've got so much more hopefully free time, you'll be able to do a lot more personal approaches, a lot better communication, maybe a lot more one-to-one things. So for us, that's the fascinating move, I guess, is we can automate so much more of our processes. We can start to do more creative activities, I think.
Yeah, I think that's a really important point. I mean, Carol, Ashley, and I, we all market to very different audiences, but they're some of the toughest audiences, right? You market to marketers, and marketers are practitioners of their own craft, and they're the ones that are going to be picking apart and trying to see, is this AI generated? I market to cybersecurity professionals. They have no tolerance for anything inauthentic, factual inaccuracy, and they are very intolerant of any personalization at scale that goes wrong. And I do think that authentic touch, that one-to-one, making sure that your audience understands that you understand them as people and you're trying to have a dialogue with them, is going to become more and more important over time. I mean, if you're in if you talk to people in your peer group, there's already starting to be dialogue in private chats and so forth around how can you tell if something is AI generated content. And everybody knows when it's happening, but you can't really put a finger on it. They just know it's not generated by a human. So that interplay of using AI technology well for scale, for speed, for buyer understanding, you can't not think about the authenticity and maintaining that authenticity at the same time. Buyers are too smart and they're not going to tolerate it.
100%. And I think that there's an opportunity to to consider like in an analysis of data, things like that, like for scale. Things I interestingly enough was having a conversation with my sister-in-law who is in HR, completely different, job function, and she was, I have no idea how to use AI, but I know that I need to. And so we had this whole like conversation, and but by the end she was like, you have me convinced, right? And because she was viewing it as this, I don't want like to sound like a robot, and I'm like, I hear you.
Yeah.
Let's like take a step back, and here's how you can actually use it to your advantage. However, to work smarter, not harder. But then don't just take it at the, face value of what it's.
Yeah, I also think we're at a kind of a interesting spot as marketers, because there's a lot of machine learning that has been built into current tool sets. And we use the term AI with a very general brush, when personalization at scale has been around for years. I mean, some of the examples I gave you, Ashley, last week of personalization gone wrong. I mean, everyone's gotten the email with the wrong person's name on it, right? Which is like basically 15 years ago, which is a bad mail merge or bad, no one scrubbed the data and your name ended up being somebody else's name. And that's enough of an eye roll. But even now, people are working from home. My husband and I both work from home. I received a chatbot. I was on a website and the chatbot popped up with an attempt at personalization. And they said, let us offer you this white paper to see how our services can help your company. And they named the company. It was my husband's company because it was his IP address that they were picking up. Now we both work out of the same house. So those are the types of things that you really need to think about as you look at your tech stack and you look at your integrations and you understand how you're personalizing. Some of this old stuff is, people are going to take one look at it and be like, I know what you're doing. So, and you're doing it wrong. So you should probably stop now. And that will be even more amplified with the true AI tooling that's now available.
Totally.
I think it's fascinating. Like it's almost like this kind of new age of mass personalization is possible. Like, we've been inspired by everything. And I guess, picking up, we always look, I think in B2B, it's fascinating to learn from a B2C element and look at things like Amazon and Netflix. And, every customer has that experience in their own home. So they expect us to deliver the same experience. Like I would expect people to reference the company and to reference what I do and possibly what I've done. Mainly, I guess I'm a marketer, so I'm judgmental, but also, you just expect that kind of level of personalization, understanding, knowing what you want and you need. And I think, with the facilitation that Gen AI has, that to tailor to people's needs really individually, really quickly, pick up on things. You can train the models to kind of do so many things. It's so fascinating. And I think we're just kind of at this point where we've got almost this like real-time data, this ability to answer at speed, and also kind of bring in personalization. It's just like, to me, it's such a fascinating area that it's going to be such a huge shift this year.
We actually have a question in from the audience that I think is very relevant here to this conversation. So Nathan is joining us from San Francisco. So welcome, Nathan, and has a specific question around buyer interviews and insights. And so he is curious on starting interviews with existing customers. And so he's just getting started. And so he has a question around, are there any traps? Do you have any tips for finding interested buyers who haven't considered your specific solution?
I guess One of the kind of, I guess, for new customers, a really good way is putting something on your website. Obviously you kind of drive demand to your website, but what we found is really fascinating is to interview people on our website and to run surveys. And there's some great tools. Obviously there's loads and loads of tools. You always feel bad mentioning one, but I really love Winter, and kind of running some of our pages through there and getting feedback. You can sort of say, can you give me an IT feedback? Can you give me marketers, within a certain area or seniority? And you can get them to feedback, and they give you such fascinating insights on, some of your messaging, your positioning. We rebranded in June last year, and about a month in, it was fascinating for us with our wonderful brand that we thought was incredible to run some of our pages through and actually get real feedback from marketers saying, actually, I don't really understand what you mean here, or how does this work? And start to collate that. So in terms of new customers, for us, that was a really great way. And then also we do a huge amount of work with communities, and it's fascinating to kind of like just put things out into community just for advice sometimes, but also to get feedback, making sure that you can use things. So it's really great in that sense. I think there's a question for you, Jane. Have you used Winter for cybersecurity? I used it for IT when I was at Canonical, but
yeah, we have not used Winter for cybersecurity professionals, but we employ a lot of different techniques. There are absolutely traps only talking to current customers, right? It's friends and family. And so they'll be as honest as they can, but just like any other thing, you need to make sure that your audience is more representative of the buyer you seek. And so, plus one to Carol's comment about working with communities to try to find interviews with people that represent your archetypical buyer, but might not have bought from you yet. That's actually a slightly different, I think, questionnaire. You want to ask a lot of the same questions as you ask your customer panel, but you also want to ask more about their buyer behavior. If they ended up not buying anything at all, that's a tell, and understanding what that process is and that buying job is and that conclusion. And also if they bought from, somebody else, understanding what that is too, that stuff is gold. So, I do think that there's a place for, going out to research panels and doing a combination of that quick hit qualitative or quantitative, just ask one or two questions. But you definitely want to seed in. I mean, it's not a statistically significant sample size, but at least 5 like detailed 20-minute interviews with people who represent your buyer who don't actually buy from you. And honestly, the way that we do it is through referral. We ask for our friends and family, like, hey, do you have other CISOs or VPs of InfoSec in your community that you would like introduce us to just for these research purposes? People are very willing to give their opinion. And so we haven't had a problem there. But it's so important to have a well-rounded view, because if you are only asking your internal people or your very best customers, you're going to be a part of an echo chamber that might end up not serving you pretty quickly.
Amazing. Yeah, I think that there's a lot to be said there. And even as we see, the evolution of community engagement here, I think that leveraging communities for testing for your messaging and personalization is a really important outlet. It's actually a key place where we often are like just sharing information with our research, for example, and or tapping for research audiences as well. And so a lot of times, like we may be commissioning research as like out to our US audience, for example, but then also sharing that same survey to our different communities and things. And so I think that that's an important area that we can be tapping. So Gina, obviously as the owner of community, what are some of, or how rather do you foresee the role of communities playing in the one-to-one personalization?
Yeah. It is, I mean, community-led growth is the way. Nobody can sell you better than your customers and your partners and your ecosystem. Community at HackerOne means something a little bit different than most B2B SaaS customer companies. Most of the time, it's either a customer community or a partner community, or we have 2 million strong ethical hackers as part of our community as well. We're essentially a two-sided marketplace that matches companies with ethical hackers that can help them. So what our balance has to be, because you can't be too salesy, you can't be too, it's our community and you'll do what we say. Absolutely not. It's like by the community for the community, and the company who's kind of facilitating it really does serve to facilitate it, allow time and space and forums for people to talk to each other, to learn from each other, make sure that the resources are there for customers and hackers and partners to be able to have the really important dialogue and get the best use out of your company's offerings. And you really have to be very careful not to be too heavy-handed and kind of let them do their thing. That has been we've been very successful in that area. I think most of the best communities look like that, where you just kind of let the people have their forums and make sure that you're supplying the infrastructure and space and opportunities for that dialogue to happen.
Yeah, no, that's great. That's great. Carol, what are some of your favorite communities that you're a part of and or leveraging through Exclaimer's marketing strategy?
Yeah, absolutely. So we're kind of a lot earlier in terms of building a community. We've recently started in the last kind of 6 months, just looking at, building out a marketing kind of, I guess, a forum, not necessarily a community, where we've offered for people within our kind of community and within our customer base to join a bigger forum to help us with things like beta testing, to give us advice, feedback, and that really early stages of community. So we've got a lot, and probably need to pick your brains, Gina, in terms of like, how do we start to kind of really do that and really facilitate those conversations. That's what we're really trying to invest in. In terms of other communities, we don't really kind of work with communities necessarily for it to be kind of monetized or trying to have that. It's more for, a lot of the time it's for my team. I love them to join, to learn, to kind of be with other marketers, and I think that's where you really spark those great ideas. But for us, it's very much just being part of that ecosystem, that network, joining in things like webinars and opportunities. Obviously, we absolutely love the Rev Genius community, as we're here as well, but it's a massive, amazing learning opportunity, and some of the people that you bring in for speakers. I really like kind of listening to some of the Dave Gerhardt things and some of Marketing Against Grains, the podcast, but they've got a fantastic community behind it through the HubSpot community. And they're sort of probably three of my favorite communities right now. And we also work with bigger networks like the ANA network over in America, and with things like Tech Nation in the UK. So really depending whether it's sort of variety or marketing audiences. But our biggest thing is just to kind of, I guess, like, to a degree, amplify our brand strategy to get awareness, but also to learn and to have that opportunity for my team to kind of do different things and kind of almost stand on the shoulders of giants. I think is the best thing for community, because you just have so much opportunity to learn, such a rich kind of network of people, but also ideas as well.
Amazing. Samantha asks, what tool have you built your community on? I'm looking to build out a community for my company, and we have Squarespace as our backend platform, which kind of sucks. But wondering what platform or tool you have used.
So for this, we're actually at that evaluation stage, so we haven't made a decision. I don't know if maybe that's a better question to pop over to you, Gina, if you've got any advice on tools, but we haven't settled on that yet, and we have been using Squarespace too for things.
Yeah, I think it really, just like anything else, when you're evaluating tool stack, it kind of depends on what you want and where you want to start. So if you really want to index on providing easy access to the knowledge base and to tech support and so forth, that's one tool set. If you want to have more like, just give me a giant box full of stuff that I can use, whether it's gamification and incentives for advocacy, or forums to allow partners to come in and be a part of the community as well. That's like the old school stuff, like Influitive, that's been around for a really long time. I've used it a couple of different places. At at HackerOne, because our community is so ethical researcher oriented, we have a variety of tools that we use, and it's really more about making sure that there's two-way communication between us and our community, and then there's like a really good chance for them to interact with each other, and that's kind of a different tool set that we both bought and built. So there's no easy answer, but you have, like I said before you can get what you want, you got to know what you want. So be really crisp about your requirements and what those needs of the communities are. I mean, one of the best communities I'm in is a kind of a private CMO community that really just consists of a private Slack channel and a weekly call. And so, because we're all marketers, and we gravitate to forums like that. We don't need a lot of gamification, or at least not in this community. We don't need the full, forum requirements, but that's very different from, if you really need if you are really seeking advocacy and you want to incentivize your community to do, references and speaking and that kind of thing. That's a whole different tool stack and more expensive.
Way more expensive. Yeah, I think that defining those requirements up front, success metrics, what success looks like is really important because then you have a goalpost to measure against long term, which is really important. So that way, you're not 6 months in and feeling like you failed.
The only other pro tip I would give Ashley and Carol is staffing. Think about how you want to make sure that you've got the right resources. For many years, I flat out rejected the idea that marketing should run community. I always thought it should live in product because it should be, we don't want marketers to get too tempted to get too heavy-handed with their community. And quite frankly, a lot of the communities I worked with in the past were, a lot of the questions were asked around, very specific technical things that product really had to address. And so it made sense for the community management function to live in product. I think that's evolving, but do not go into community building and investment lightly. You really need to think about stewarding that community, and that requires incremental time. And at least, you need to model that out. If it's not an FTE right away, and it's a half of a person's time, make sure you have that figured out before you actually pull the trigger and buy a tool.
No, I think that's really good feedback. And it just, that tool is such an important part, and it does depend so much what you want. I know that I love, the Slack kind of elements of community because you have that ability to have the free chat. But, if you're wanting to leverage anything in terms of reviews or investments or, referrals, then, it doesn't really work. But actually getting, advice and feedback instantly is just fantastic. So
for sure. Let's see here. I feel like we could go so many different directions here. But one of the things that I think is really important when it comes to personalization, especially from a global strategy, and obviously Gina coming from the cybersecurity space, and Carol, you're headquartered here and or located in London. And so this is something that you have to worry about as well, is security, compliance, and things as well. And so given the heightened emphasis on cybersecurity, what do security measures look like when it comes to like aligning a personalized approach to protecting customer information without diminishing that experience of one-to-one and things? So Gina, would you like to start?
Sure. I work for a cybersecurity company, and we definitely put our money where our mouth is when it comes to our own security practices. So my examples and my experience might be a little bit like heavy compared to non-cybersecurity companies, but we can't stay in business if we are not ourselves secure by design. And so I go back to basics. And I remember, oh my gosh, what year was that when GDPR passed? 2017, a long time ago. GDPR took 3 months of my life in a conference room at Highland headquarters, with legal and external counsel, and sales apps, and we were trying to figure out like what this actually meant, because this law was giant and unwieldy and vaguely written, and we did not know we had to learn on the fly. Thank you, 2018, to translate that into useful, practical steps so that we wouldn't be fined, because the fines were very heavy if you mess this up. GDPR was the global data privacy regulation that passed in the EU, and it basically said people can opt out any time, and you actually have to prove that you deleted their data and all this stuff. And so that was my first trial by fire in terms of how marketing is heavily influenced by privacy laws, but it should not be a compliance first conversation. It really is, you don't want to talk to anybody that doesn't want to talk to you. So continuing to know that buyer, continuing to enter into dialogue with them in the places where they go to find information. All the basics, everybody who's on this call now knows the basics. Explicit opt-out and making sure that the way that people enter into your database is all through sanctioned ways, and that you have good data protection, data storage policies and procedures in place. All of that stuff is table stakes. But what it's really about is knowing your buyer, understanding what's valuable to them. And as we all know, only about 5% of potential buyers for your offering in any given time are actually in market to buy. And so that 95% who is not, there are ways to keep them warm through intent tools that don't even provide. They can't even like find that exact person in their PII, their personally identifiable information, but they know their IP address. And so you can reach them through those means. And then through like one-to-one. I mean, you got to be careful with making sure that any sends you do through marketing automation or any of the sales outreach tools, the list is clean, the list is opted in, and that anybody who opts out gets processed appropriately. But the stuff that you send one-to-one to a contact that you actually have a connection with or you're trying to get introduced to, that's really your opportunity, because you can put content in there that you can't get from some of those mass personalization tools, and you've got a much better chance at not getting a nasty note back saying, delete me from all of your comms.
No. Absolutely. I think it is that basic thing. And I think for us operating in multiple different kind of regions and sort of countries is really fascinating to see the difference in terms of the laws and what you can and can't do in different countries. And I think for us, the approach we took, obviously, I know we're coming from the UK, but we felt that, we really believed in the privacy laws and the rights of the customer. And we wanted to make sure we operated globally with the same level of behaviors, I suppose, that we felt were right and that we'd applied in kind of the UK in line with GDPR. So we actually operate globally with the sort of highest level of sort of, I guess, privacy and personalization. And it means sometimes you sort of look at things, like maybe we could do, a hard, fast sort of dirty route and pull in some data, but actually, it's something that we're really, really strongly avoiding and making sure that we've got those transparent practices, because I think it just helps with that authenticity, and it's, ultimately down to your brand and what what's important to you and what you stand for. And for us, it's, we obviously work within the Active Directory for companies. We connect into their kind of email, their private company data. So we always want to be, as secure, as sort of good as we possibly can with all the accreditations and everything that we can do. So for us, it's really important to have those robust security protocols in place to make sure that we safeguard everyone's data. We hold ourselves to account as much as we can. And then we kind of, can customize within the limits of that and really look at personalization there. So I think for us, it's important to kind of do that and have that opportunity. So, and it still gives you that ability to be personalized, to do really great things, to, really interact on that one-to-one level, respecting those kind of individual preferences, but actually start to drive those really long-term relationships and drive that success together. So, that's sort of the strategy that we've taken in terms of our approach that I think really stands out.
I totally agree. And I think at Exclaimer, obviously we are one-to-one because we are taking that approach from a email, like your one-to-one email experience. And so that personalization starts there. from your one-to-one email, which is great.
Mm-hmm.
When I think that something that's really important to me, I'm passionate about, is cultivating an innovative culture. Gosh, tongue twister of cultivate and culture here. And, I've spent my entire career in SaaS. And so obviously working with a bunch of IT people and have really mastered the IT buyer. Thank you, Gina, for really ensuring that. So I actually, for those that don't know, started my career in IT as really focusing and honing in on the IT buyer, and then was hired by Gina at Highland to stand up that function. And so, anyways, all of that to be said, really have honed in on innovation throughout my career. And so, when you think about fostering a culture of innovation and experimenting, one of the reasons that I came to work for Exclaimer is because for experimentation and really kind of understanding what we're trying to accomplish, and also driving an experimentation culture as well. And so Carol, talk to me a little bit about how you drive and foster a culture of innovation and experimentation and personalization strategies, and what kind of impact you're seeing cross-departmentally from a collaboration standpoint on those initiatives.
Yeah, so I guess from AI, we kind of, everyone is super excited. I think everyone is at the minute, and we've started looking at what does our tech stack start to look like in terms of what we're wanting to work with, what companies have really great AI tools, how we want to leverage it. Everything's changing so fast, so a lot of the team are doing their own research. They're starting to apply things. We're doing a huge amount of work with Jasper, so we bought Jasper, and we're starting kind of doing a lot of our writing with Jasper, but across all the other tools, looking at how we can plug them all in. But I think the biggest thing is just encouraging that culture in your team of sharing, of failing forward, of testing things, of trying things out. I think for us, that's kind of a really great way of getting everyone on board and really kind of applying it across the whole company and starting to get everyone kind of testing things out, trying things, experimenting. Because I think one of the biggest things that I really took away from a recent report in the Harvard Business Review was that AI isn't going to take your job. It's not going to replace marketers or people necessarily. But what will happen is that someone who's using AI or tooling or all the modern kind of elements, you'll be replaced by somebody who can use those better than you, that is experimental, that has that growth mindset, that's testing and learning all the time. And I think that's the biggest thing to kind of bear in mind, and to really, as a CMO, encouraging the team to be at the forefront, to be learning, to be kind of experimenting every single day is something that I'm really, really passionate about.
Amazing. Gina, what about you?
Yeah, a lot of the same plus one on what Carol said. The job market and B2B SaaS has been very volatile over the past couple of years. And volatility breeds fear and the need for wanting to be safe. And so a lot of my challenge as a leader over the past couple of years has been to continue to try to drive a culture of innovation in an environment where people just are a little bit seized up, right? Because we were in the pandemic and everyone was just we had to be innovative then because everybody was staying home and trying to continue that connection. And thinking about how you operationalize that. We do a monthly what's working, what's not call in marketing so that we can actually talk about the stuff that we think is going really well and the stuff that we tried and didn't work. So to normalize the reality that things aren't going well, and also to make sure that we're learning from those things. At HackerOne, we have a saying: "You win or we either win or we learn." And the faster we learn, the better off we'll be. And so really almost celebrating the things that we learned from is just as important as celebrating the stuff that's going really well. And that also has this sounds a little bit, squishy, but fostering just a culture of psychological safety where people feel like they can go out and experiment, and they feel like they can go out and do testing. And if the test fails, that they actually have a conduit for us to talk about it as a team and learn from it and figure out what we're going to do as a next step is so important. The only other thing I'd say on this topic is it's so important. Marketers are at the tip of the spear. I think that we are also the suggestion box / complaint box. Everybody has ideas on how we could market things differently. I wouldn't like to tell you the amount of times people came up with the idea that we should do a Super Bowl ad over the years. I'm like, oh, all right, maybe someday, but we're back in the day. I'm like, we're 5 million in ARR. That's a Super Bowl ad cost 10 million, right? So like, let's table that. So the other thing, but in all seriousness, good ideas come from everywhere. And so being able to, and again, it's all about the operationalization. Your team can either get inundated with great suggestions and not know what to do with them, or you can put a really simple process in place, almost like a suggestion box to say, hey, listen, thank you. We're going to put it here. Anything from what, our competitors at XYZ show, you should do that. We should do that too, to, hey, I was talking to a customer or somebody on a plane and I got this brilliant idea for a campaign. Have a place for those things to be submitted, and then have a usual cadence with your team. Like, let's go through the suggestion box and let's see what people have to say. And maybe we test some of this stuff, but always get back to them and be like, okay, great idea, but it's not really part of our strategy right now. Or, hey, listen, we're kind of taking your idea and running with it, or kind of riffing on it, but thank you for the suggestion. So that's like both within marketing and with like cross-functional collaborative teams, you can foster a culture of innovation.
I love the what's working, what's not meeting. I think that's really, really great. And, I think it's just amazing to get people to have that culture of being really open. And one of the biggest things, everyone's like, yeah, we ran this campaign and it got 1 sign up. And it's like, getting people to actually be like, but, why was that? What did we do wrong? How can we make it better? How next time will it be amazing? And getting people to switch that mindset, I think, is just so essential for marketers, because otherwise, you are essentially playing poker in a sense. You're playing risk. You're making your bets, you're placing your bets, you're playing your hand, and you can't always guarantee where things are going to lie. So getting the team,
you're not going to win every time.
No, exactly. It's like that blend of data and kind of that art and science element, and then taking a few bets and relying on your instinct and being aware that if you fail, then it's such a fantastic learning opportunity, as long as you do learn and not do it again. Yeah,
right.
Totally. And I think sharing those learnings is really, really important too. And even sharing them with the world. One of the things that I've really challenged my team with is documenting. And I say documenting, but it's just capture 3 bullets and write a LinkedIn post about it, right? And share with others, because I think that you never know who is in the exact same shoes that you're in. And if you can help them, somebody's going to help you someday too. And so I think it's really important for us to all be sharing with one another, because we are all in these exact same shoes, right? As marketers, we're all fighting the same battles every day. And so I think that opening up the hood, sharing the stories, talking about the wins we're having, but also the things that we stumbled and scraped our knees, and what are those whatabouts and gotchas and things along the way. Those are just as important to talk about. And we do a lot of testing. We do a lot of testing on my team, and sometimes we are successful, and sometimes I'm like, oh crap, that one wasn't quite so good. So and we end it and move on to the next thing. But we've had some really fun things that have come out of some wild, crazy ideas. And some of them even come from 11-year-olds, so I think it's all about turning the chair and listening. And as long as you're willing to collaborate and have those conversations with others, and be genuine and authentic and actually have those, that's where that community play comes in, the influencer play comes in, right? It's not about pay to play always, but rather just being yourself and having that conversation. So
yeah, it all adds to that authenticity, right? Especially if you have a campaign that comes from an 11-year-old, or somebody in your sales engineering organization who is talking to a prospect who sparked an idea. those are the things that really make you stand out. Humans buy from humans, and they want to know that you've got some sense of humor and that you can be trusted, and that can all come out in your campaign work and in your one-to-one work.
Totally. I totally agree. Samantha actually has a question here. She asks, how have you found Jasper to be? I purchased it, but not sure it's any better than ChatGPT. Perhaps I just need to spend more time with it and make sure all our brand info and voice and product info is in there.
Yeah, so I'll be totally honest, I use a mix of tools. So, and I think it's good to use a mix of tools because things, all of a sudden ChatGPT will release something or another platform will release something. And I think it's great just to kind of play around with all the different tools. For Jasper, you do have to spend some time with it. You do have to take a lot of time. One of our team kind of took over and was really kind of the spearhead for Jasper coming in, the training, spent a lot of time, teaching Jasper to help it learn our tone of voice. They also taught it my tone of voice, which made me feel really, really weird. So you can click on a button of like Exclaimer's tone of voice, and then you can click Carol's, which, as I said, it's a bit odd. But you do have to put the investment in. You kind of need to take time, really help it learn. And the same as if you built a model, like you have to kind of teach it how to behave. And I think the biggest thing now, it's all about the inputs you put in, the guidance you give, and you think we're not kind of, previously, if you're building a website, you're working in kind of like building kind of technology, you'd be very, very fixed in terms of your input. It's like, your coding was always very fixed. Whereas now we're saying, can you create me a blog post that, talks to marketers about X, Y, and Z? But actually there's so many kind of nuances and so much interpretation and, so much freedom and flexibility. So the more information you can feed into things like Jasper and models, the better the quality of kind of the outputs you get. So I think it's really about putting that investment in.
Can I say something about this too? Think about security. Jasper has more security guardrails in place. I think it's a closed LLM. If you are using chat, and I hope everyone already knows this, but if you're using ChatGPT, don't put anything in there that you would not be comfortable with your competitors seeing. No proprietary data, no intellectual property. So if you want to use a LLM writing tool to distribute technical documentation or anything like that, like do not use an open. I mean, ChatGPT, there's a reason the company's called OpenAI. You're also, training that model by virtue of the fact that you're putting stuff into ChatGPT. So ChatGPT is great for a lot of stuff. But if your requirements for, necessitate, like if you want to do next likely purchase analysis, do not put any data into ChatGPT. I mean, I think you can do redacted, but like the time it takes you to clean that list and make sure that data is, anonymized to the point where you can actually analyze it, you might as well just buy a closed tool. So please do think about security concerns and how you're actually going to use it.
Great point.
Totally agree. Yeah, I totally agree. And great shout, Gina. I think that's something important to consider. And Carol's right. We have trained Jasper to have Carol's tone of voice. Also trained it to have my own tone of voice and things. And I would also recommend, there's a lot of trainings out there as well that Jasper provides too. And so there's actually one for demand gen today, even, and I am by no means influenced or paid or anything by Jasper, but they do have a ton of really good trainings. And so I would highly recommend Samantha for you to even just like hop on some of their webinars and stuff too, because they've got some really good ones out there and things. And so I know that my team has taken part of some of those as well. And it's new. This is a year ago at this time. A lot of people weren't even using Jasper or even ChatGPT for that matter. So I think that we have a lot to learn still and how we can be utilizing it in our everyday, and what that looks like is different for myself versus Carol or Gina even. So I would just encourage you to utilize the training as well. So I want to be sensitive to everyone's time, and we have 5 minutes here. So all of that to be said, I do want to open it up to the audience for any questions. Obviously, we've been answering as we've kind of carried out this panel conversation. And of course, I want to sincerely thank both Carol and Gina for joining me here today. Conversation on one-to-one marketing and personalization here. I think obviously this is something that's very near and dear to my heart. Authenticity is incredibly important as marketers continue our journey here and things. And so any other questions that you have, please feel free to add them into the chat, and Carol and Gina are more than happy to answer them. And in the meantime, Carol and Gina, do you have any final thoughts or parting words for the audience?
I was just reading an article. Actually, it was a headline. Let me qualify that. I haven't read the article yet, but the headline was something to the effect of marketers will be clamoring for authenticity tech in the coming years. And I read that and I was like, really? Like, we're going to keep like creating these, disastrous scenarios where we're using AI to create inauthentic content, that we're going to like develop new tech to like make it more authentic, when why don't we just remember that we're all human beings and we want to talk to other human beings? So I don't really have a opinion except for like, oh my gosh, really, authenticity tech is going to become a thing. That'll be interesting.
Oh my gosh.
No, that's fascinating. And it is that human to human element that I think is really, really important. Like I was saying before, you have this fantastic opportunity to go at pace and at scale with content and things, but always, people will see through that inauthentic content and realize that it's kind of very machine written. There's loads of tips and tricks I've seen flying around of like, how can you tell if it's machine written or not? And, it's fascinating. But I think, as I guess it increasingly shapes things like search engine results. It's shaping things like reviews and network and content. I think it'll become more challenging for people to kind of discover you through search, and also to know what's real and what's not. So I think an element for us, and something that we've been investing in, is, recognizability, presence, your brand, how that stands out, being really clear, I guess, on the fundamentals and the basics, to go back to what we were first talking about of like, how do you stand out in that ecosystem, by being authentic, personalized, a really good strong brand and clarity of messaging, and sort of using those communications channels that are really available to you. So I think while budgets are tight, there is that argument of what do you invest in, and I think it's really that kind of really core elements of your brand and personalization and kind of focusing your demand gen around that for us anyway.
Amazing. And on one final note, we've got one question here. Which B2B brands are currently killing it in personalization? Any thoughts?
I think 6th Sense does a really good job.
Yeah, absolutely. I love all the things from 6th Sense and the marketing, and we obviously use 6th Sense ourselves, which gives us such a great opportunity in our OBM activity. We also really like Mutiny as well for the website. I know we're evaluating different tools for our website in terms of offering personalized experience. When you land, it's relevant. We've been doing a lot of manual. I think we've been fudging a lot of things while we've been testing and moving so fast. So we've been doing a lot of manual kind of experiences and personalization, which has been fascinating. Ashley's team's done the most incredible amount of campaigns, but actually investing in tooling to give us that full journey would be really exciting.
Qualified, I would also say, does a really good job of that one-to-one experience. All right. Well, thank you everyone for joining us today. It has been my pleasure to sit alongside the two of you. So thank you both for joining us. And I hope that you all have a wonderful week. And we will all hopefully see you live and in the flesh and one-to-one soon. Thank you.
Thank you very much, Ashley. Thank you, Gina.
Thank you.
Thanks.